Making the headlines tonight. Deputy Prime Minister Saw King has called the provincial authorities to prevent the destruction of natural resources in the Tolosap Lake. Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn celebrates the 26th anniversary of the Asia-Europe meeting and addresses ASEAN partners through a video speech. The US closes the door on supplying compact aircraft to Ukraine, saying it would be a high-risk move to increase the chances of Russia escalating with NATO. World number 2 Djokovic withdraws from the Indian Wells tournament due to his refusal to take the COVID-19 vaccine. And Chile has its first same-sex couple legally wed after Chile's Congress approves legislation guaranteeing legal rights for the LGBT communities. This is the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. My name is Anthony Ellis. The Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King, has called on the provincial authorities to take care and to prevent the destruction of natural resources in the Tolosap Lake. He made this call while speaking at the closing ceremony of the meeting to summarise the work, the results of 2021 and to set the work direction of 2022 of the Battambang Provincial Administration on Thursday 10th of March in Battambang City. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more details.
Deputy Prime Minister Saw King urged the provincial authorities in the Tonle Sap Lake area to visit and teach people about the benefits of natural resources so that they can take care and protect the environment together. He said, the Tonle Sap Lake authorities must teach the people around the lake area to help protect, take care, and help manage the natural forests so that the provincial administration and the Somluth district governor can prevent our natural forests from disappearing. He also instructed all professional and relevant officials to disseminate information to the local people on the boundaries of the flooded forests in the Tonle Sap Lake area in order to set up the correct post and to further advise the district governors adjacent to the lake to carefully manage and protect the natural resources in the area. He especially urged all district governors around the Tonle Sap Lake to not be involved in illegal encroachment of flooded forest land. The Deputy Prime Minister also asked the royal government to support the provincial administration in this endeavour, emphasizing that, if not done well, they will receive criticism from the future generations. More than 15,000 families in 6 provinces around the Tonle Sap Lake have voluntarily returned nearly 70,000 hectares of illegally occupied land to the state, 3 months after the government issued a rule by order of the Prime Minister on November 28, 2021 to reclaim this land. Deccan Nin, EAC News.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn celebrated the 26th anniversary of the Asia-Europe meeting on the 1st of March 2022 and addressed the ASEAN partners through a video speech. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
ASEM is now the largest cooperation framework second to the United Nations, representing 60% of the global population, 55% of global trade, 65% of the global economy, and 75% of global tourism. Last year, Cambodia had the honor of hosting the 13th ASEM Summit under the theme of Strengthening Multilateralism for Shared Growth. Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn said he was pleased to see ASEM leaders reaffirm their commitments to revitalize multilateralism towards a more resilient, sustainable, inclusive, and dynamic future of Asia-Europe cooperation. He added that ASEM leaders also tackled global and regional challenges such as global actions against COVID-19 and climate change, enhancing public health and safety, focusing on youth employment and women's empowerment, and resolving to tackle World Trade Organization reforms, among others. The Deputy Prime Minister described how at the last ASEM meeting, 3 important documents were produced. First, the ASEM 13 Chair Statement. Second, the Phnom Penh Statement on Post-COVID-19 Socioeconomic Recovery. And third, the Way Forward on ASEM Connectivity. These documents solidified ASEM's solidarity to maintain and promote peace, stability, and prosperity in Asia and Europe for a more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future for current and future generations. He said it is important for ASEM to persevere in the difficult times ahead and must prioritize commitment in each other's partnership to build a cohesive, competitive, resilient, and sustainable community for Asia and Europe. He stressed this common goal to ensure multilateralism will create stability and prosperity for all, and will hopefully address the emerging regional and global issues under the 2030 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The Deputy Prime Minister concluded that Cambodia looks forward to working closely with all ASEM partners and relevant stakeholders to foster ASEM cooperation and friendly relations to a new height, addressing common concerns and, most importantly, implementing the ASEM 13 measures. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Cambodian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn, met with the new Pakistani ambassador of Cambodia, Sahin Bahar Tahim, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Thursday, where he expressed his future intention to establish a Cambodian embassy in Pakistan, discussing the possibility of coordinating further exchanges between the two countries for this purpose. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more.
During the meeting, both noted with satisfaction the growing good relations between Cambodia and Pakistan. With the exchange of high-level visits between leaders, and the two sides agreed to further strengthen and expand relations and cooperation, particularly in the fields of economy, trade, tourism, education, and defense. The Foreign Minister of Pakistan is expected to visit Cambodia at the end of 2022, which will mark an opportunity to further enhance relations between the two countries. Since relations between Cambodia and Pakistan have become stronger, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn expressed his desire to open a Cambodian embassy in Pakistan in the future. He said he hopes that the new Pakistani ambassador will further enhance bilateral ties and cooperation and reaffirm the Cambodian Foreign Ministry's readiness to fully cooperate with the ambassador to complete the mission of opening an embassy in Pakistan successfully. In response, the Pakistani ambassador stressed that he would work to further strengthen and expand bilateral relations during his diplomatic mission and also congratulated Cambodia for assuming the 2022 ASEAN Chairmanship. He added that he hopes the Deputy Prime Minister would succeed in his role as the Special Envoy of the ASEAN Chair on Myanmar, especially in regard to finding a solution to the ongoing Myanmar crisis. Following the meeting, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn wrote on his official Facebook page saying that he was pleased with the state of relations between Cambodia and Pakistan, and he looks forward to celebrating the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries coming up in May 2022 and for the official visit of the Pakistani Foreign Minister. Diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Pakistan began on 28th of May 1952 and have lasted for 70 years. Pakistan has its embassy in Phnom Penh, while Cambodia has an honorary consulate in Lahore, Pakistan. Deccan Nin, EAC News.
The 11th Cambodian EU Joint Committee meeting was held in Phnom Penh in a hybrid format Thursday and Friday, 10th-11th of March, to review the progress made since the 10th Joint Committee meeting held in Brussels back in 2018. The meeting was co-chaired by the Secretary of State of Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Deputy Managing Director for Asian Pacific European External Action Service. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has more details.
According to a joint press release issued by Cambodia and the European Union, the 11th Cambodia-EU Joint Committee meeting saw the exchange of views on a wide range of bilateral and multilateral issues, including the latest political developments in both Cambodia and the EU. The meeting also discussed other matters such as the situation in Ukraine, Cambodia's chairmanship of ASEAN, the situation in Myanmar, the global economy, climate change, EU-ASEAN strategic partnership and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. The EU commended Cambodia for successfully convening the 13th Asia-Europe meeting in 2021, which demonstrated the shared efforts and commitment in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic and ensuring that multilateralism remains relevant and effective in addressing regional and global issues. The EU further expressed its full support for Cambodia's 2022 ASEAN chairmanship, as well as the appointment of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn, as the Special Envoy of ASEAN to Myanmar. Three main subgroups under the headings of trade and investment, cooperation, and institution building, administrative reform, legal and judicial reform, governance, and human rights also moved forward with discussions on progress in each respective subgroup's focus. The subgroup on institution building, administrative reform, legal and judicial reform, governance, and human rights exchanged views on key developments on human rights, anti-trafficking policies, and ratifications of international conventions, as well as Cambodia's multidimensional reform efforts and preparation towards the upcoming 2022 commune elections. The subgroup on trade and investment reviewed Cambodia-EU bilateral trade and the investment climate in Cambodia, noting that bilateral trade in 2020 and 2021 had passed the €4 billion mark. The meeting further discussed matters related to economic recovery measures, bilateral trade and investment relations, and both sides expressed a commitment to further strengthening cooperation to ensure Cambodia's investment climate remains open, well-facilitated, competitive, and conducive to sustainable socio-economic development. Finally, the subgroup on development cooperation highlighted the progress made in relation to EU's continued support to Cambodia's development, with particular appreciation for the adoption of the EU's new cooperation multi-annual indicative program valued at €155 million for the period between 2021 to 2024, and which focuses on the three priority areas of green growth and decent jobs, education and skills development, and good governance. Both parties exchanged progress on policy reform, particularly in the EU-supported sectors of education, public financial management, social protection, and fisheries, and expressed value for the progress in thematic and regional cooperation programs, such as ASEAN regional integration support from the EU. At the end of the meeting, it was agreed that the 12th Cambodia-EU Joint Committee and its three subgroup meetings would be held in 2023 in Brussels. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Golden West Humanitarian Foundation and the Platinum East plan to sign a memorandum of understanding of the continue the strengthened partnership and the cooperation with the Cambodian Mine Action and Victim Assistance Authority, expressing their intention to help Cambodia become a leading centre for capacity building of technical training within the field of mine action at both the regional and global level. The first Deputy Chairman of the CMAA, Senior Minister Lee Chut, confirmed that he had a meeting with the delegation from the Golden West Humanitarian Foundation, led by the Technical Advisor on Partnership and Cooperation in the Field of Mine Action in Cambodia, Chantal Faris, on Friday. The Senior Minister welcomed the signing of the MOU between the Mine Authority and the Golden West Humanitarian Foundation with assistance of other institutions, both domestic and foreign. During the meeting, he also asked the Golden West Humanitarian Foundation to increase cooperation on the entire field of mine action, such as bringing the new modern technology and conducting training among the vulnerable communities, local authorities and basic law enforcement forces, through the integration of community-based education and awareness programs on mine mines and unexploded ordnance. He specifically asked the fund to help train the Mine Authority's quality management team to maintain the highest quality controls operations in the field. The Senior Minister also thanked the Golden West Humanitarian Foundation of its partnership with the Cambodian Mine Action Centre since 1998, including the Foundation capacity building and explosive ordnance disposal training activities in Cambodia. The Minister of Commerce, Pan Salsak, received a visit from the Ambassador of Australia to Cambodia, Pablo Kang, and his colleagues Thursday in the Ministry of Commerce, where the two exchanged comments and held a discussion on the progress of bilateral and regional cooperation in the field of economic and trade between Cambodia and Australia. EAC News reporter Deccan Ning has more.
Minister Pan Sosa welcomed the ambassador and his colleagues and also extended his thanks to the Australian Minister of Commerce, Dan T. Hunt, for his full support of Cambodia assuming the 2022 ASEAN chairmanship. As the chair of the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting, Minister Pan Sosa informed the Australian ambassador about progress surrounding the negotiations on the upgrade of the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, AANZ-FTA, which is one of Cambodia's priority economic achievements for 2022 under the fourth key strategic goal of ASEAN globalization for growth and development. He stressed the need to accelerate and speed up negotiations on the remaining issues in order to complete the negotiations and upgrade the AANZ-FTA in a timely manner as planned. He also briefed the ambassador on the progress of Timor-Leste application for ASEAN membership and the World Trade Organization. In response, the Australian ambassador expressed his appreciation for Cambodia's proposed economic priorities that reflect a response to global developments, particularly the conclusion of negotiations around the upgrade of the AANZ-FTA, which he said is a main priority for cooperation between ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand in 2022. The ambassador also reaffirmed Australia's continued support for Cambodia as the rotating chair of ASEAN in 2022 and pledged to continue working closely with the kingdom to achieve Cambodia's priority achievements to build a sustainable and resilient ASEAN community. He further informed the Minister of Commerce about the excellent progress made on cooperation in the field of competition and consumer protection, in which he reaffirmed Australia will continue to support capacity building and technical assistance to the Ministry of Commerce officials, as it is an important contribution to improving the business and investment environment in Cambodia. Concluding the meeting, both sides noted the growth of bilateral trade between Cambodia and Australia and pledged to continue boosting trade and investment and strengthening cooperation efforts to rehabilitate all sectors and industries in the aftermath of COVID-19 crisis. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Ministry of Labour and Vocational Training reported on Thursday that 147 out of 373 former employees of Naga World, equivalent to 40%, have decided to accept a settlement with the Meditation of Ministry, who continues to request the stop of protests and turn to further meditation. EAC News reporter Deshana Guchin has the story.
In a press release issued on Thursday, 10th March, the Ministry of Labour said that from 18th to 27th December 2021, the Ministry of Labour and Vocational Training invited the disputed parties to explore the possibility of further mediation in accordance with the Labour Law 7 times. At the time, the ministry said the side of the Naga World workers continued to maintain their demand for Naga World Limited to take back the 373 protesting workers and then discuss other demands. However, according to the ministry's settlement as of Wednesday, 9th March, 147 out of 373 former employees have accepted legal compensation, making the total number of remaining former employees still rejecting the compensation and seeking further retribution from Naga World 226 people. Based on the procedures enforced by the law in order to resolve the dispute peacefully, to protect the interests of both workers and employers, and to contribute to the preservation of public interest, the ministry has called on all former employees of Naga World who took part in the strikes to stop making mistakes that affect their legitimate interests. The ministry has also stated that it will continue to cooperate with relevant institutions to address all concerns of the protesters, as well as consider the legal rights of investors. In April 2021, Naga World announced plans to lay off 1,329 employees, including the 373 employees who refused to accept compensation and went on strike on 18th December 2021, despite the Cambodian courts deeming such protests to be illegal. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Apsara Authority has requested businesses in front of Angkor Wat to stop the preparation of traditional Khmer clothing for tourists to wear while visiting the ancient temples, after experts identified some of the traditional clothing on rent or for sale were not designed properly and in accordance to the rules and regulations on the Cambodian culture and traditions. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
According to the Siem Reap Provincial Information Department, Apsara Authority spokesman Longko Sol confirmed that some people, most of whom live in the Angkor area, have set up their stores to offer traditional Khmer costumes for tourists to wear while visiting Angkor Wat. However, the Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts recently examined the decoration of traditional Khmer clothes at these shops and found that they were not in accordance with the traditional rules of ancient Khmer culture. The Apsara Authority spokesman continued, in the past, the Apsara Authority has also advised those who do business in traditional Khmer clothing to understand the rules of Khmer clothing and the period of time clearly before providing the clothing for guests, which can lead to confusion. He added that the Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts also plans to send professional officers to guide and train those who are engaged in the decoration and sale of traditional Khmer clothing to properly learn the rules and culture of authentic Khmer clothing before continuing with their business, so that Khmer traditional culture can continue to be promoted more responsibly. He said that the Apsara Authority, as well as the Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts, would like to see the traditional Khmer clothes prepared for tourists to be done well and in accordance with the correct customs, rules, and traditions of ancient Khmer cultures. Earlier this week on Monday, the Apsara Authority also spoke out about the use of the Cambodian national flag to make clothing, after a music video company designed costumes modeled after the flag. The Apsara Authority has stressed that such use of the national flag will not be allowed in order to maintain the respect and honor for this symbol of national pride. Dekan Nin, EAC News.
Cambodia has reported 237 new COVID-19 cases, including 30 which are imported. There have been 305 patient recoveries and 1 new death. 11th of March 2021, exactly a year ago from today, marked a sad milestone for Cambodia and its people, as the kingdom recorded its first COVID-19 death. The death currently stands at 3,045, with most cases being unvaccinated. The total tally of Omicron community cases now passes the 12,000 mark. Cambodia has now recorded 13,297 cases of Omicron, 1,178 imported, and 12,119 community cases. The Kingdom COVID-19 case has now climbed up to 133,738. The death toll stands at 3,045. The number of patients treated successfully since the pandemic reached Cambodia is 128,300, and the total tally for imported cases climbed up to 21,035. Healthcare workers are currently treated a total of 2,317 patients. Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Friday, 11th of March.
Over the past few days, Mount Merapi, located between central Java province and the special region of Yogyakarta, has increased its volcanic activity with pyroclastic and lava flows that descended into the southwestern flank above 5 kilometers from the summit, prompting over 250 residents in the surrounding area to evacuate, the country's disaster mitigation agency has said on Thursday, March 10. The eruption is ongoing, and according to the Geological Agency of Indonesia, the alert level status on a scale from 1 to 4 is set at level 3 and is showing an increase in activity. Potential dangers include more lava flows and hot clouds, warning people living within 7 kilometers of the volcano to keep away. Located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, Indonesia has more volcanoes than any other country. Merapi last violently erupted in 2010, killing more than 350 people.
Да. Ничего тут не открывают, як завжди. Ні. В цьому ні.
New members of the Ukraine Territorial Defence Forces were trained on how to operate anti-tank weapons during military exercises in Kyiv on Wednesday, March 9th. The reservists have trained on the NLAW and the AT-4 anti-tank launchers made in Germany and Sweden representative. The instructors say they have received a weapon just recently, unfortunately is late. Western countries have stepped up in arms deliveries to Ukraine. It is the first time the European Union has found in the wake of World War II with the purpose of upholding peace on the continent has collectively provided arms to a third country.
A total of 2,814 military infrastructure facilities in Ukraine have been damaged since the start of the Russian special military operation on 24th February, according to a Wednesday report from the Russian Federation's Ministry of Defense. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the facilities put out of order include 11 military airfields, 13 command posts and communication centers of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, a total of 139 S-300 Buk M1 and S-125 anti-aircraft missile systems, 84 radar stations, 974 tanks and other armored vehicles, 104 multiple launch rocket systems, 359 pieces of field artillery and mortars, 727 military vehicles, as well as 97 drones. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine claimed that as of Wednesday, Russia has lost 317 tanks, 1,070 armored vehicles, 120 artillery systems, 28 anti-aircraft systems, 56 MLRS, 49 fixed-wing airplanes, 81 helicopters, 482 ground vehicles, 3 ships, 60 tank trucks, and 7 drones since the beginning of the Russian invasion on 24th February.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Wednesday, March 9th, the international community will be responsible for the massive humanitarian catastrophe if it is not agreed to no-fly zone to protect his country.
Українки. Одним з головних завдань для нас сьогодні була
Zelensky has said the threat level in Ukraine was at a maximum nearly 2 weeks ago into Russia's invasion, but Ukrainians had shown they would never give in. The Ukrainian leader has stated that Russia is using missiles, aviation, helicopters against his country, against civilians, against their cities, against their infrastructure. It is the humanitarian responsibility of the world to respond. but there is no decision. Ukraine has pleaded with Western nations to provide it with fighter jets to counter a Russian invasion that has forced more than 2 million refugees to flee the country. And U.S. lawmakers have responded by pushing President Joe Biden's administration to facilitate the transfer of aircraft. On Tuesday, Poland has said it was ready to deploy all its MiG-29 jets to Ramstein Air Base in Germany and put them on the disposal of the United States, urging other NATO members to do the same. The Pentagon has later dismissed the offer as not tenable. So when will there be a decision, Zelensky said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday dismissed Russian allegations of biowarfare labs in Ukraine and said they showed that Russia was capable of chemical attacks. Meanwhile, Russia has made repeated accusations that the United States is working with Ukrainian laboratories to develop biological weapons. Such assertions in Russian media increased in the run-up to Moscow's military move into Ukraine and were made as recently on Wednesday, March 9, by Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova. Zelensky has also said he worried the allegations meant that Russia might be prepared to deploy chemical weapons in Ukraine. The United States on Wednesday said the Russian accusations were laughable and suggested Moscow could be laying the groundwork to use a chemical biological weapon, worries that were also shared by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Thursday.
Number of outstanding issues.
The European Union should fully existing financial instruments to cope with the Ukraine crisis before launching the joint European Union funds for that purpose. Dutch Minister Mark Rutte has told the students in Paris during a speech at the Science Po University on Wednesday, March 9th.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine has plunged Europe into a new era of uncertainty. No one knows where Russia's aggression will end. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has called on the other members of the EU to make use of the existing instruments to the max and keep on holding talks about what they need to do more. Russia has announced a new ceasefire in Ukraine on Wednesday to let civilians flee besieged cities after days of mostly failed promises that have left hundreds of thousands of people trapped without access to medicine or fresh water. Rutte's speech comes ahead of a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron later on Wednesday and an EU leaders summit in Versailles on Thursday, March 10th, with the rise in energy prices and less dependence on Russian gas and oil noted as the main concerns. Rutte has also said he could imagine Germany rethinking their decision over leaving the nuclear sector, adding that nuclear energy is one of the ways for the bloc to decrease dependence on Russian gas and oil.
The United States on Wednesday, March 9th, has closed the door on supplying combat aircraft to Ukraine, saying the intelligence community assessed it would be a high risk to move that caused increased chances of Russia escalating with NATO.
NATO ally Poland has surprised Washington on Tuesday with a public offer to transfer its Russian-made MiG-29 fighter jets to a U.S. base in Germany. As a way to replenish Ukraine's air force, Kiev has implored the West for combat aircraft. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby has explained the U.S. decision, saying that the transfer of MiG-29s would change little for Ukraine relative to Russia's capabilities and has stressed U.S. support for supplying other types of weapons.
Now, the Secretary also had a chance to discuss with Minister Blaszczak the proposal to send MiG-29 fighter aircraft to Ukraine, and specifically the notion of doing so by way of transfer to U.S. custody. Secretary Austin thanked the minister for Poland's willingness to continue to look for ways to assist Ukraine. But he stressed that we do not support the transfer of additional fighter aircraft to the Ukrainian Air Force at this time, and therefore have no desire to see them in our custody either. We believe the best way to support Ukrainian defense is by providing them the weapons and the systems that they need most to defeat Russian aggression, in particular, anti-armor and air defense. We, along with other nations, continue to send them these weapons, and we know that they are being used with great effect. The slowed Russian advance in the north and the contested airspace over Ukraine is evidence alone of that. Although Russian air capabilities are significant, their effectiveness has been limited due to Ukrainian strategic, operational, and tactical ground-based air defense systems, surface-to-air missiles, and manpads. Secondly, the Ukrainian Air Force currently has several squadrons of fully mission-capable aircraft. We assess that adding aircraft to the Ukrainian inventory is not likely to significantly change the effectiveness of the Ukrainian Air Force relative to Russian capabilities. Therefore, we believe that the gain from transferring those MiG-29s is low. And finally, the intelligence community has assessed that the transfer of MiG-29s to Ukraine may be mistaken as escalatory and could result in a significant Russian reaction that might increase the prospects of a military escalation with NATO. Therefore, we also assess the transfer of the MiG-29s to Ukraine to be high risk.
The Ukrainian Air Force currently has squadrons of mission-capable aircraft, and additional MiGs would provide little gain. Overall, Kirby has declined to offer details on what specifically drove the U.S. intelligence assessment. The United States has sought to speed weapons deliveries to Ukraine, but it shrugged on Tuesday at the prospect of flying combat aircraft from NATO territory into the war zone. Russia's defense ministry has warned this week that countries even offering airfields to Ukraine, let alone flying in fighter jets, for attacks on Russia may be considered as having entered the conflict. NATO has said it does not want direct conflict with Russia, a fellow nuclear armed power, and President Joe Biden has ruled out sending U.S. troops into Ukraine to fight, something the Pentagon has said would apply to troops on the ground or in the air flying missions. The United States has also rolled out calls from Kiev to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine, something military experts say would be equivalent to the United States entering the war against Russia.
My wife Jill in the
After the break, a look at all the latest sports news.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
World number 2 Novak Djokovic has withdrawn from the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells, the tournament announced on Wednesday. in the latest setback for the player due to his refusal to take the COVID-19 vaccine.
The Serb had been automatically listed in the draw for the tournament, but said he knew it was unlikely that he would be able to gain entry into the United States. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has confirmed that regulations won't be changing, so I won't be able to play in the US, Djokovic said in a tweet. Good luck to those playing in these great tournaments, he said, referring also to the Miami Open, which begins later this month. Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov will move into Djokovic's space in the draw ahead of the start of the first round of the Masters 1000 tournament on Thursday. Djokovic was unable to compete at the Australian Open after immigration authorities detained him on January 6th, prompting a legal rollercoaster ride over the country's COVID-19 entry rules that led to the cancellation of his visa later that month. Rafael Nadal went on to win the tournament, and with it, a men's record 21st Grand Slam title, one more than Djokovic and Roger Federer. Djokovic most recently competed in Dubai in February, where Jacques-Jiri Vesely upset him in the quarterfinals. The loss meant he would lose this world #1 ranking to Russian Daniil Medvedev, who claimed his maiden major title in Flushing Meadows in September and is the top seed at Indian Wells. France loosened COVID-19 restrictions this month, with vaccine passports no longer mandatory as of March 14th, opening the door for the 34-year-old Djokovic to defend his French Open title starting in May.
The Major League Baseball and its lockout players reached an agreement on Thursday on a 5-year labour deal that ends the second longest work stoppage in the game's history.
Major League Baseball canceled.
MLB locked out players last December and had already cancelled the first 2 weeks of the season of 2022, which was scheduled to begin on March 31st. I am genuinely thrilled to be able to say that the Major League Baseball is back and we're going to play 162 games, said MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, who began this year's conference in New York with an apology to fans. I know that the last few months have been difficult. There was a lot of uncertainty at a point in time where there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, he said. Team owners voted to ratify the agreement hours after players approved the new Labour Act, which includes increased minimum salaries, a new pre-ambition bonus, pool reward top young players, and raise in competitive balance tax thresholds. Our union endured the second longest work stoppage in history to achieve significant progress in key areas that will improve not only just the current players' rights and benefits, but those in generations to come. MLB Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark said in a statement, players remained engaged and unfilled beginning to the end, and in the process re-energise our fraternity. Spring training campus will open on Sunday and a full regular season to begin in April 7th. Doubleheaders have been added to the schedule to make up games cancelled after league missed planned March 31 opening day. The final vote from the Executive Subcommittee and 30 players' representatives was 26-12 in favour of the new collective bargaining agreement, ESPN reported. While the deal paves way to the return of America's pastime, bitter acrimony remains between the two sides. The MLBPA's Clarks last week called out the lockout as ultra-economic weapon against athletes. Manfred defended the move on Thursday, calling it the most effective way to reach a new agreement without losing games where the deal was not in place at expiration of previous pact. But he acknowledged there was work to be done and repair the league's relationship when it's off the field. One of the things I'm supposed to do is to promote a good relationship with our players. I've tried to do that. I think I have not been successful in that, he said. He said the league compromised on its proposed 14-team playoffs and made other concessions to the MLB players. I hope that the players will see the effort we made to address their concerns in an agreement as an olive branch, said Manfred.
Begin on March 31.
Austria, Finland and Norway each walked away with a gold medal from the Paralympics men's giant slalom competition on Thursday, 10th of March.
Norway's Jesper Pedersen nabbed his third gold of the Beijing Games when he clocked in the fastest time in the men's giant slalom sitting competition. Pedersen came in just over 3 seconds ahead of Italian René De Silvestro, who took silver, with China's Liang Zilo taking bronze. The 22-year-old Norwegian had previously taken home gold medals in the Super G and Super Combined competitions. In the men's giant slalom vision impaired competition, it was Johannes Egner who took the gold home for Austria. The 16-year-old beat out Italy's Giacomo Bertagnoli and Slovakia's Miroslav Hararus, who took silver and bronze respectively, to take home his second gold medal from Beijing after previously having won the downhill. Finland's Santeri Kievere came back to beat Charles Walls of the United States in the men's giant slalom standing competition. Walls had clocked the fastest time in the first leg, but Kievere overtook him in the second leg to take the gold, leaving Walls with the silver. Arthur Bottes of France take home the bronze medal.
Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for tomorrow. And finally, Chileans Javier Silva and Jamie Nazar become the first same-sex couple to wed in South America's country history on Thursday, 10th of March. Although Chile allowed same-sex couples to register the civil union agreements and be eligible for some legal benefits in 2015, Chile's Congress only just approved legislation guaranteeing legal rights for the LGBTQ communities this December.
Silva and Nazar had signed a civil union agreement together 3 years ago after being in a relationship for 4 years prior. They wanted to start a family and now have 2 children, one who is 20 months old and another who is just 4 months old. They said that they believed that marriage was an important step for their family, as well as to be recognized by the whole country as equals. They expressed that they are proud to be a part of this historic moment for their conservative country. Silva and Nazar are proud for their children to be recognized as having 2 fathers and excited for their future to see cultural changes and new narratives taking place in Chile. Silva added that without the support from decades of human rights and LGBTQ groups, as well as their families and different institutes, their wedding day could not have happened. Chile's President-elect Gabriel Boric, who took office on Friday, posted a congratulatory message to the couple on his official Twitter account. He wrote, "My congratulations to Jamie and Javier for being the first couple to marry under the new equal marriage law, to continue advancing for Chile with equal rights and freedoms for all people." In recent years, Chile has been making progress in the field of LGBTQ rights, despite a long history of conservative traditions.
Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup here on the EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, check our website eacnews.asia or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favourite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.